Hello, we are live with another Ovadia Heart Health telemedicine live stream. And today I'm very privileged to have Doug Reynolds as our guest. I've been looking forward to this for quite a while. Doug is the founder and CEO of LowCarbUSA and the president of the Society of Metabolic Practitioners, which he also founded. He's a former endurance runner who struggled with weight gain and metabolic issues despite his success as a distance runner. And he managed to transform his health through therapeutic carbohydrate reduction. And that successful health journey led him to the creation of LowCarbUSA, which has now grown into one of the leading organizations advancing low-carb science through world-class symposiums, practitioner accreditation, which is now done through the SMHP, and clinical guidelines, which are helping to lead to a standard of care for therapeutic carbohydrate reduction. And I'll let Doug clarify and give some details about all of this. But Doug is also the author of the new book, The Road to Metabolic Health, which is an Amazon bestseller. And it chronicles the rise of the metabolic health movement and his role in shaping its future along with Pam Devine and a long list of practitioners, which Doug's efforts have really been instrumental in bringing these people together for the benefits that so many people are enjoying today. Before we go into the interview, I have to just throw up on the screen this medical disclaimer, just so that everyone knows that anything that we talk about today is not medical advice. And if anything that we do talk about is intriguing or leads you to want to make changes, you should talk to your own qualified doctor or medical professional before undertaking any changes to your nutrition, diet, or fitness. And if you do want to reach out at all to Ovadia Heart Health, you can email us at team@ifixhearts.com. So with that out of the way, Doug, I want to talk to you about so many things. I mean, you've been so involved, you've done so many things, and a lot has happened lately. Why don't we start out with the book, which just got launched in January and had a really successful start, and tells a lot of the story about how we got here. And tell us, maybe go back to the early days a little bit with respect to how you started LowCarbUSA, and tell us about the book for starters.
Well, thanks for having me, first of all, Chris. For quite a while now, I've been always thinking back to, I'm an electrical engineer, a software engineer that is basically, got an organization or two organizations now that are teaching practitioners and doctors how to do therapeutic carbohydrate reduction in their practices. And I've often thought to myself, like, how the hell did I end up here? And I always used to think back to my previous life, and started, became aware of the fact that it's like so many things from when I was really young that I feel like were formative, that established the person that I am and the character that I have. And so when this opportunity finally came up, I mean, I'd done a bunch of different things that had all been pretty much dismal failures. And yet when this opportunity or this idea occurred to me to start and put on a conference and start LowCarbUSA, I didn't even bat an eyelid. And so I always thought that, sorry.
Tell me, like, you were a successful athlete and you're running long races, and yet you still were struggling with your metabolic health. And then you figured out, like through trial and error, I suppose, and I think you've told about how you learned about the ketogenic diet. Tell us briefly about how you discovered it, and then maybe how that inspired you to want to share it with others, many of whom are currently struggling with things even larger than what you were struggling with.
Yeah. So I was pretty successful. When you say successful, I mean, I wasn't competitive. But in South Africa, they have this ultra distance run that's about between 53 and 55 miles, depending on which direction they go, because they alternate directions each year between two cities, Pietermaritzburg and Durban. And sometimes there's even roadworks happening and stuff like that, so there's a bit of a detour in that. So it's never exact, but it's about 55 miles, and it's a very mountainous course, and it's like a cult there. They have it on TV for 12 hours the whole day, and it's not a matter, if you're not running, it's not a matter of whether you're going to watch it, it's a matter of where you're going to watch it. People have these parties and gather at different houses, and they have the TV on the whole time, and they start with the what we used to call a skottel, which is like the original thing came from like a plow disc that they used to use to cook on. And so there's a commercial version, and so they would do the breakfast on there, and then keep watching the race as it's unfolded, and then lunch would come. You'd have to have something for lunch, and start a braai in the afternoon, like a barbecue. Throw a bunch of steaks on the fire, and drink a lot of beer. And it was a thing. It's like the Super Bowl, like. So many people watch the Super Bowl. A lot of them, even me, I don't really follow football. In fact, I don't follow football at all, but I always watch the Super Bowl. It's like one of those things that it's such a big event that you just have to watch it, So I ran this race 10 times eventually. And they actually retire your number when you do that. They present you with a big green piece of cloth with a golden embroidered laurel wreath on it with your number on it, and then no one ever gets to run in that number again. And it's a big deal, and I got that, and this was before I actually found the ketogenic diet or anything like that, and I never managed to get back to actually run at least one run in my green number, like wearing my green number, which is quite a thing, but I just never managed to do that. But even though I was running well over 100 miles a week in the heavy weeks of training, and running throughout the entire year, 40 miles a week, 50 miles a week was like off season running, and yet as I got into my 40s, I started to realize that like I was putting on a bit of weight, each year there was a couple of pounds there, and I thought I was just being lazy and not running enough, and blame myself. And my knees were sore, so I was starting to hate running. Still trying to get out of there because I thought I should be, because I shouldn't be such a lazy bum. But I really wasn't enjoying life at all. And then somebody wrote to me, sent me an email about an exogenous ketone product. And I didn't even know what a ketone was. At that stage, I was about 52. And I had never heard of a ketone. And so I started studying about it, and went down the rabbit hole for about 3 weeks, like devouring every bit of information, every YouTube video that I could find. Back in those days, there wasn't like thousands of them like there are now. And sort of after 3 weeks, it kind of explained all the problems I was having, because I was, I just felt terrible, and I had respiratory issues that I was starting to develop, and all sorts of things. And what I was reading made sense, like how glucose is effectively a poison for us. And so I decided to do it. This guy that had written to me, the company was brand new. They had run out of product, so I couldn't have even bought any if I wanted to. But I had learned so much about it. I actually thought surely it's better to get into that state of ketosis by doing the diet and not by trying to take exogenous ketones and up your ketones. Because even though therapeutically there are some really great benefits for exogenous ketones, just because you raise your ketones above 0.5 or, you know, into that sort of range that's supposedly ketosis, your body hasn't undergone all the other metabolic changes that you undergo when you get into ketosis. And it's those metabolic changes that are the foundation of all the goodness that comes out of it. So in a way, I think I was lucky that they didn't have, and I wanted to do something, and so I started doing the diet. And
So
very few.
you figured out how to do it. You kind of figured that out on your own through research and whatever. How long did it take you to start to see the results of the ketogenic diet?
I'd say pretty within a week or two. I already, you know, I mean, people who've done this will know that like a lot of it in the first week or two is water weight and stuff, not necessarily fat weight that's come off. But at least I saw a difference, and I just started to feel better, you know. And we were doing martial arts at the time, and because we had to travel so far to get to the studio, we used to combine, instead of driving up 4 days a week, we would do 2 back-to-back classes twice a week. So that was like 90 minutes of hardcore exercise. And I would come home at night and sit in front of the TV and eat chocolates and all this other sort of stuff that I thought I was supposed to be eating as a runner, because you need the sugar and the carbs, right? But get up in the morning and I literally could hardly walk. I was like almost crawling to get to the restroom to go to the toilet in the morning. And very quickly, it got to the point where I was jumping out of bed and going for a run in the morning. Like, it was just astounding. My knees cleared up. My weight started to come down, and I was about 35 pounds when I first started this, about 35 pounds over what I used to call my fighting weight that I used to be for so long, when I thought I was bulletproof and I could eat anything and just run it off. So that it took 5 months for that weight to come back down to 160 pounds, which is what I kind of considered a good weight for me.
So you took this experience. Now you're an engineer, so you understand how to research, how to experiment, and clearly you were successful with your own application, your own N=1. Unfortunately, for a lot of people out there, that's a big ask to navigate all of what's out there in the medical world, all the different people with different ideas, and mainstream nutrition, which has not been extremely receptive to therapeutic carbohydrate reduction. So you decided to found an organization to help, be a central point, to do these symposiums, to try to bring experts together around this topic of therapeutic carbohydrate reduction and metabolic health. Tell me a little bit about how you went from just the engineer who had solved his own N=1 to having that very first symposium. And before you start, I want to just let everybody know that this August in San Diego is going to be the 10th anniversary of what Doug started a decade ago. So go ahead, tell us how it started.
Yeah, so it was my birthday, and it was now 5 months since we'd started. We started in about the July, so maybe 6 months. And all this weight had come off. I was feeling fantastic. People at work hated us because we wouldn't stop talking about keto. And we were all there with work colleagues, and we didn't talk about it, and they finally left, and it was just Pam and myself at the table. And then we did start talking about it. And I was saying, like, how is it that I had no idea that this even existed, 6 months ago? And there's so many people out there that are just like me, even now, that don't have a clue. And from the things that I'd researched and that I try to do, became more and more aware of the fact that there were the people that were trying to publish information about this were under such pressure from mainstream, from the pharmaceutical industry and mainstream medical industry and everything, that it was really hard for them, and they were kind of out in the wilderness on their own, but they kept doing it because they really believed in it, and they were seeing, for the practitioners, they were seeing actual results for the first time in their careers, sometimes, where they'd never been able to help these patients before, and suddenly they were responding. And there were a couple of small conferences at the time that had just started up, but they were small, 100, 150 people. And I was pounding my fist and saying to Pam, like, San Diego in summer is like that destination city, right? We need to put 1,000 people in the room. I was like pounding my fist. And it was weird. I mean, I literally got up the next day and started trying to contact people. I didn't know anybody. I'd never been to a low carb conference. I didn't know a single person that was a known speaker or something like that in the space. And I literally looked up a couple of people that I'd become aware of being the sort of the higher echelons of the community, the most respected speakers, and that were attending these other things and doing YouTube videos and stuff like that. And I literally looked them up on their websites, and like entered a thing in their contact me form and said, like, I'd like to speak to you. I want to try and start an event in San Diego. And a couple of them responded. One guy responded and offered to put me in touch with a bunch of other potential speakers, which was great. And Gary Taubes was one of those people, and he eventually agreed to have a Zoom chat with me, right? And I tease him and say, like, it was like I'd asked him to marry his daughter or something. So it was like an inquisition. But he told me afterwards, like, I've been invited to speak at other places. They paid my fee and everything, but hardly anybody showed up. And so that's not, that's not good for anybody. So I just wanted to make sure that I felt like you could do this. And I had experience putting on events, not low carb keto events. And yeah, I mean, he got to the end of an hour on the phone, which I was very concerned about, because I knew how much he valued his time. And at the end, he said, "Okay, so if you put this on, I'll come and speak."
Oh, amazing!
And that was the moment, I mean, I put the phone down, and Pam, I had it on speaker, and Pam was standing sort of off to the side down the hallway a bit, and I looked at her and I said, "Shit." I genuinely, like, this is real. Like, we have to do this now.
Before you go on, I should say that Gary Taubes has been a life-changing figure for so many people in the low-carb community, partly because his participation and cooperation helped you get started. I will also say that his book, Why We Get Fat, was literally my introduction to low carb.
Right.
And I'm currently working within the Ovadia Heart Health telemedicine practice as a health coach, which I should credit the Symposium for Metabolic Health for providing me with the educational resources to to get accredited. That's something that didn't even exist like more than 5 years ago.
Right.
And so Gary Taubes, was influential to me. I know that he was the introduction that Dr. Ovadia had to low carb. One of our other health coaches, Krishna Hanks, was very much affected by Gary Taubes's work. And the list goes on and on. I mean, when I go to one of your symposiums, it's just amazing the impact that people can have. And now with these symposiums, the impact is just being magnified exponentially. So I'll let you continue, but I just had to mention that.
It's important because he was and is enormously influential, and so his faith in me and agreeing to commit to come and speak was everything, And I don't know if you've got a book with you that you can read, because basically, so I tell the story that we put the phone down, Pam and I chatted for a bit, and then but I want you to read the Churchill quote on the back, because what happened was that I opened an email like shortly after I got off the phone with Gary and we went back to work.
Yeah, let me read it.
And the guy, but just to put it in context, the quote, this guy used to always have a quotable quote at the bottom of his emails, like in the signature block. And I opened this email, and that quote that's on the back of that book there was on it. Do you want to read it quickly?
Yeah. There comes a certain moment in everyone's life, a moment for which that person was born. That special opportunity, if he seizes it, will fulfill his mission, a mission for which he is uniquely qualified. In that moment, he finds greatness. It is his finest hour. Winston Churchill.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was kind of inspiring at the time that when I read that, but it's just so much more so now. At that time, we were only planning to put on one event. The one in August in San Diego is going to be the 10th San Diego event, and about our 24th event in total that we've put on.
While we're mentioning San Diego, let me just put this up.
Yeah, there we go.
And the 10th annual symposium for metabolic health, August 14th to 17th, on Coronado Island in San Diego, and you can find the event page on the LowCarbUSA website, which is lowcarbusa.org. And I strongly encourage anybody that can to attend this in person. There's also virtual options. So, that's an option if you can't physically get to San Diego. But I think this every symposium that I've gone to has been, life-changing. My life has changed so many ways. The people that I've met, both doctors and other practitioners, as well as individuals who are working hard to, maximize and optimize their own metabolic health. And it's a great networking event. There's great low carb dinners. It's just amazing. So I encourage people to do that. So back to the story.
Yeah. So just to follow up on what you're saying is that, the atmosphere there, you can attest to that. The atmosphere there is just, it's hard to describe. I mean, it's not even hard. It's impossible for me to describe how powerful it is. We understand that certain people just can't come, right, for all sorts of reasons. But if you are able to make a plan, it is so worth it. It's unbelievable. But what I was getting to with that quote was it's like it only really became as powerful to me as it is right now as I was writing the book, and I remembered that situation when I hung up the phone and read that quote, and it had all evolved into something where we have achieved something pretty amazing. I think, it's like completely bootstrapped with no money. In fact, a reasonable amount of debt when we got started, and yet we found a way to make it work. And yeah, you can read in the book about the dramas and the struggles and the financial issues that we had trying to get that first event off the ground. And I still don't know how we're still standing.
Why don't you,
But
one point that you've brought up in the book, and I've heard you tell before, is just that that moment of very deep concern at the end of that first conference when you were trying to settle the bill, and how you stayed up all night putting together a website page for the next year's event. Go, just tell people that story.
So I mean, the thing was that and I tell the whole story about the meeting down in the lobby with the manager 3 weeks before the event, and we had not collected enough money to pay the next installment of this the sliding scale of installments that we had to pay coming up to the event. And he was telling us he wanted to cancel the event. And I was hysterical. I was like, there's people coming from all over the world. I literally have zero money in my account. Every cent that I have collected, I've given to you, and you're not going to give it back to me. What am I going to do? We can't cancel this. We just can't. And I must have been quite persuasive, because maybe he just couldn't stand to see me in tears or something. I don't know. But he agreed to let it go on. And I said to him, I'll find a way. I'll find a way to get you the money. But now I tell you the story about packing everything up after everybody's left after the last lecture on the first day. And they've gone out into the foyer where all the expo was and all the vendors and everything. We had Dry Farm Wines there, and Bulletproof Coffee was there as well. So they were a very dynamic guy that was running that kind of thing, or that booth. And I was left behind, like packing all my stuff up. And I then walked out. And so now this thing was in full swing. And it was absolutely humming. There was so much excitement in the room. And it's kind of, I looked at it and said, wow, like, we did this. Pam and we did this. And heaven knows how, but we did. And then I went out and got some wine and sort of started mingling, and people kept coming up to us and saying, like, when's next year's event? And I said, well, we'd only planned this event. We're only going to do one event. They said, no, you have to do another event next year. And so I said, okay, well, if I create an event that I have no idea who's going to be the speakers or anything, but it'll be something similar to this, would you buy tickets in the next week for next year? And they all said, absolutely. So like you said, that I didn't. That was a Friday. I didn't do that. But on the Saturday night, I stayed up right through the night, built a new page for the next year's event. So now our website was 3 pages. That was a terrible website, but it did the job, And so we added a page for the next year's event. And I told them on the Sunday I said, if you guys are prepared to, I gave them a big discount on the tickets, sight unseen. You have no idea, except my commitment that it's going to be at least as good as it was this year. And we sold like 84 tickets or something. And that made the difference between us being able to get out of the hotel and pay the bill for the hotel, It was, yeah, it was incredible. And, and then we had nothing to live on. Literally, we'd used up everything that we had, all the credit card bandwidth that I had, which is large because I'd been a lot of international travel before I started this. Everything was tapped out, and we got an eviction notice a couple of weeks later on our apartment, front door of our apartment, and I had no idea how we were gonna get out of this. And then one of the vendors that was at the event came to us and said he wanted to help us do something in Florida. And so we decided to do something in Florida in January and put it together and started selling tickets for that. And we collected some money that we could start paying the bills for LowCarbUSA and pay some of our rent that they at least took the eviction notice down. And we just kept plugging along. And I say in the book, like I didn't ever make a conscious decision to do this. It was just like trying to think of ways to solve the problem, and I just kept solving the problem as best I could, without ever deciding why this sucks. Like, why are you doing this? Why don't you go and earn? I was earning good money as an engineer. Like, why don't you go and go back to that? And
well, let me take this.
It never occurred. That thought, that conversation in my head never happened. I literally didn't. It didn't occur to me. I was just thinking, how can I get past this and keep moving forward? It was weird.
I know I'm glad that you survived long enough for me to attend my first symposium in Boca in 2020. So you were about 5 years into the process by then. I'm really glad that you were able to survive that long, and then you continued to build, and things really took off. There's so much to cover. I definitely, maybe we should, I want to talk about like the SMHP and the amazing resources that you've provided for practitioners, and including like you've got a journal, you've got a journal club, a research academy, an accreditation process, and so much. We go into that in a little bit. I want to make sure that we don't shortchange this upcoming 10th anniversary symposium in San Diego. Maybe you could talk a little bit. I think you've got a really good slate of expert presenters already confirmed, and I know that the confirmations are going to just keep coming in like they always do. Why don't you talk a little bit about what people can expect? I know you have a special day devoted exclusively to neurological conditions, and it's going to be a great conference. Tell people why they should attend this conference, and maybe some of the speakers that are already locked in as definitely coming, and anything else you want to say about the conference before we move on to like the symposium of the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners.
Okay, yeah, thanks. You and I, we were talking this morning. There's quite a few people that have agreed to come back. Rashni and if you look on the website, a lot of them are under tentative speakers. But Rashni Sangani coming back from India, absolutely amazing speaker. We found her last year, fantastic. Brian Lenski is a very, very good friend of ours, and he's coming back from Arizona to speak. I believe I did a podcast interview with Dave Feltman last week, and I think he's coming. I'm hoping to get Adrian Sotomoto back as well, those are all like real A-listers. Obviously Gary Taubes is coming back again. He's been at every single San Diego event that we've had, and he even came and did a talk in Seattle once as well, and we did one up there. But yeah, he's been a massive supporter of ours. Rob Sivas is a fixture, like he's always there. Dr. Robert Kiltz is a very, very popular, well-known carnivore advocate, really. But talking about metabolic health and the whole diet thing. and he bought a
Dr.
ticket.
Boz, you got Dr. Boz.
Yeah, Dr. Boz is coming as well. But just to go back to Rob, or Robert Kiltz, not Rob Sivers, he bought a ticket to the Boca event and came and attended in January, and came to see for himself how we did it and whether he liked what we did. And he approached me afterwards and said, "What's your thoughts on having me as a speaker in San Diego?" And I said, "Absolutely." I mean, I actually, to be honest, I actually didn't know much about him before he showed up, and everyone was saying, "You know who that is? You know who that is?" When I was walking around the floor in Boca, and I looked it up and learned so much more about him, and realized, like, he's got a lot of influence, and hopefully a bunch of people will hear about it through him who had never heard of us before, and will show up in San Diego. It'll be brilliant. Peter Ballestedt is our favorite agronomist. He always does amazingly. His talks get better and better. He talked at our very first event, and he's spoken at a lot of them over the years. But his talks just get better and better, and they are so entertaining. But he's coming at it from a cattleman's perspective, right? As opposed to a physician or a practitioner or scientist. Even though he has a PhD in agronomy, this is what he does, and I don't know. I just love him. He's always. It's like when you go into the expo afterwards in the evenings, and all the people come up to me who had never seen him speak before, and they said, like, I almost missed his talk. Like, I didn't know who he was, and he was, and I almost sort of thought, I'll take a break. And I'm so glad I didn't, because he was so amazing. And since we started doing posters at our events, he always does a poster there as well. And that was, and I think twice now he's won, when we'd have like a poll to who people thought was the best poster, and he's like won the best poster award like twice now. So he's going to be there again speaking. Tony Hampton most likely will be as well. Most likely Dom D'Agostino, who's just like the most incredible scientist. That especially in the beginning, I remember the first event that we had in 2016, he spoke there, and like I saw like all these doctors and scientists like walking out afterwards, their eyes were about this big, like like they really struggle to so what seems like so simple to him is not for the rest of us. But he's evolved there as well, and so his talks are now much more understandable for the average person. I was going to say the lay person, but even the doctors and scientists that are there, they get it now, and just amazing research and stuff that he's doing. A lot of his stuff is on the exogenous ketone side, but finding benefits. Started out with the SEALs and trying to, where the guys, when they were on their rebreathers for long times, when they were swimming underwater for a long time, where they would actually start having fits, like epileptic fits and stuff. And he's doing all this research about how if they consume these exogenous ketones before they go, then they don't have these episodes. I mean, you're underwater, and especially if you're underwater in a hostile territory, it's like you start having a problem. You can't just pop up to the surface. While you're training, you get yelled at, but you can do it. But when you're in country, it's a whole different story. He's worked with NASA and helping work out how, doing experiments with how the astronauts can do better with the diet and with the exogenous ketone products and stuff. So
You know, I want
really
to
interesting.
I want to take just a brief opportunity to say that I've been so impressed with these conferences because you alluded to it already. Like, um, it's got information that's really high level that will satisfy, like the deepest knowledge search for some of these practitioners, and yet um, most of these people are approachable and will also talk in a way that an average person can understand. And I attend these conferences as an average person, and yet at dinner time during these amazing low carb dinners that you put together, I could find myself sitting, and I have, like one time I was sitting between Dr. Ben Bokikio and Dave Feldman, and they were talking about science that most of it was going over my head, but they were always glad to bring things down to earth for me, and then you get to hear Dr. Ben preview some of the jokes that he tells on the stage, and he's cracking up the entire table. It's a great networking event. It's a great social event, and it's an amazing learning experience. And do you want to say anything? I just want to mention that the last 5 or so conferences, maybe it's 4 or 5, you've devoted to an entire day to a specific part of metabolic health, and you've done cancer, you've done type 1 diabetes, you've done mental health, women's health.
Yeah, women's health and food addiction.
So I've been able to benefit from all that, and I got to tell you, like, I knew nothing about type 1 diabetes until last
me
year
too.
at Boca, and then I actually became personal friends with probably 5 or 6 people with type 1 diabetes that I still connect with a year later. I bought I bought Bernstein's book about type 1 diabetes, and it's like there's so much information that even a layperson like me can learn. And I would just, anybody that's on the fence to attending an event like this, I just want to say it's not over your head. You could come away with so much. If you're interested in becoming a coach, if you're interested in becoming accredited at the SMHP, just my thoughts. It's an amazing opportunity, and I would encourage everybody to consider doing it.
The type 1 day was spectacular. I mean, Troy started it with the food addiction day that we did a few years ago in Boca. And it went off so well, we decided to kind of do a focus day like that going forward. And the following year, we did type 1 diabetes in Boca again, like you said. And it was humbling, that whole weekend. Sort of started understanding what these people deal with on a, not even a daily basis, like a minute by minute basis. Like, it's just astounding. And I'm the same. Like, I have a bunch of friends now that a couple of them I sort of knew before, and some of them I had never met before, but all contributed to that type 1 day. And I got to know them planning the day and deciding which talks in what order we were going to do them in and all of that. And just so grateful to us for doing that for the type 1 community. Just an amazing bunch of people that it was a privilege to be able to help them the way we did. It was amazing.
Are you able to talk a little bit about the focus this year on neurological conditions? Just an overview on what people might expect. I know that there's still some planning going on, but what do you anticipate?
Yeah, there's a lot of planning going on. So the one guy that I need to put up there, hopefully I can do it this afternoon still, is a doctor in Florida, neurosurgeon, or I think he's a neurosurgeon, that was at university with me in Johannesburg in South Africa. And his name is Mike Hoffman. He's spoken in Boca a couple of times. He was in San Diego maybe last year, I think, maybe the year before. But he's coming back now, and I'm kind of bringing him on board to help me design the neurological condition day. And so all the conditions, Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and what else is there? ALS, is it? There's just so many, and not all coming to mind right now. But up until now, we've had a person speaking about one of these conditions somewhere. Epilepsy is another one.
Yep.
It's time that we focused on this, because it's like the mental health thing that's just blown up in the last couple of years, where it's becoming apparent that these conditions are so debilitating, and yet if we just change the way people eat and change their lifestyle, there's so much we can do. A lot of problem with a lot of those is that they are kind of non-reversible. For a lot of people, they type 2 diabetes, they develop type 2 diabetes, and they change what they eat, they can reverse it. Not so much with Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. And the longer they have it before they try the intervention, the less they're able to respond. But even with people that are already far gone, they respond somewhat, so that whatever it is, their quality of life is going to be better, sometimes a lot better than it was before. They might not be able to get back to 100%, but they can be better. But what's even more important, I've heard some of these guys talk about, it's like 30, 40 years before you actually start showing symptoms of this condition, the damage is starting to happen back then. And so I feel like it's so important to try to, I don't want people to get sick first and then try and fix it with any of these things, to be honest. Why get diabetes and then say, okay, now finally I'm going to give up some of the carbs and fix it. I
would urge anybody that is if you're a practitioner and you want to learn more about the possible effects of using therapeutic carbohydrate reduction in any of these diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, ALS, multiple sclerosis, it's like you're bringing all these people together in the same room who have a deep desire to try to see if they can learn from each other and give some hope to advancing the science around this stuff. And you've done it so brilliantly with those past events. I'm really looking forward to seeing what's coming next. And I'm going to put up the picture again, because when you come to the San Diego symposium, you not only get a great experience at the symposium itself, but you get the beautiful surroundings of San Diego, which is just incredible, especially in the mid to end of August. It's a beautiful time to be in San Diego. And I'll put up the URL one more time, just so that if anybody wants to secure their ticket, you can just go to lowcarbusa.org. And I put the URL on the screen, but you can also find it on the menu. And then there's
the March Madness at the moment. There's a discount, a March 20%. Madness discount running that gets you 20% off.
So you sign up before the end of the month, and you get 20% off of not only tickets and the amazing low carb dinners, but also optional CME credits, which practitioners can use for a variety of purposes, including staying, either getting or staying up to date on their metabolic health practitioner accreditation. And I'll take this off the screen now. But the other thing, you're welcome to stay as long as you want, Doug. You've already given me so much time, and it's very much appreciated. But why don't you tell people some
we
about?
Still need to talk about the SMHP. So
exactly.
I can stay a bit longer.
So tell some of the highlights of the SMHP include like the Journal Club, the Research Academy, the accreditation process, and then the patient directory. If you're looking for a low carb practitioner, someone that's at least open to using therapeutic carbohydrate reduction, you can go on the website and there's a directory. You can search by location, by specialty, by whether they're certified as a metabolic health practitioner. I will let you talk about it, Doug. Just tell everybody that all the things that you think are important that they should know, and why people should take this opportunity to consider joining the SMHP.
Yeah, when we started it, it was Tro's idea as well. Again, he apparently spoke to Pam at one of the, I think it was 2020, at the Boca conference in January. And I had no idea that this conversation had gone on, but he kind of apparently said to her something to the effect that we really need an organization that is a home for us practitioners that
let me just cut in.
Yes.
Let me just say, you said Tro, and a lot of the people are going to know who you're talking about, but for anybody that doesn't know, it's Dr. Tro Kalajian, who's I believe he's a board certified obesity medicine doctor, and he's a board member of the SMHP, along with Doug and several other amazing practitioners. So I just wanted to let everybody know who you were referring to, for those that aren't that far along in the world of low carb.
Yeah, sorry, that makes sense. So Tro suggested to Pam that maybe Doug was the right guy to build this thing. But I didn't know that conversation happened. And then I saw on Twitter in February, I saw Tro chirping about the fact that we need to have an organization like this. And I reached out to him and said, I already have the concept of a membership, it was like a professional membership section of LowCarbUSA. When we had developed the clinical guidelines, which is another whole story, but they were published on the LowCarbUSA website, and it just wasn't the right place, and we weren't getting any traction with the professional membership area, and so we sort of threw it around a bit and decided that we needed to get a proper non-profit medical organization in place to provide a home for everyone that wanted to embrace this intervention, right? And then COVID hit, and so it was sort of, Pam calls it my COVID baby. I through that 6, 7, 8 months basically built the SMHP, and the hardest part, I think, was learning about how to actually establish a non-profit organization, because we had no money, so we couldn't pay a lawyer to set this up for us. I had to go and read about it and learn how to do it. And then all the government offices were closed now. It was COVID, and then they started having, like everybody else, having people work from home, and it was surprising. And it was slow, but I'll give them kudos. Like we worked through it, and we got it done. And actually, if I think about it, for government organizations, it was actually pretty amazing. And so we had a website built, and on the sort of the middle of December of 2020, we launched the thing. But I put, we've got a board of directors, and I think it was Eric Westman who is the guy that suggested the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners as a name for the organization. That there was a few different suggestions, but that was his, and that was the one that stuck. And it was to try, and we didn't want to pigeonhole ourselves in low carb or even just dietary stuff, right? We're learning more and more that there's so many other things that affect your metabolic health. I mean, diet is huge. It's probably the biggest thing, but there are so many other things that can block you if you're not sleeping right, you got too much stress. There's all sorts of things. So we were trying to work out what. So there's we decided we needed a membership concept, a directory for people to be able to look up and find a doctor or a practitioner to help them. That was going to be to list yourself on that thing was and is free. So anybody that practices in the space can go and enter their information in there and have people search and find them. And then, but there all the other features that we were building into the society and the website were kind of behind the membership paywall, so that people had to commit and engage in the membership in order to be able to access the forum. So we've been trying to just encourage interactions and discussions, and have people, when they're struggling with a case or whatever, they can put a question into the forum, and people get notified about it, and then they can come back and answer if they want to. But I think one of the big things that was suggested as something necessary was some kind of accreditation. So we spent a lot of time just deciding on what different pathways we were going to define for people to become accredited, and then what each of those pathways consisted of. The education pathway is a bunch of courses that we actually use, the courses that the Nutrition Network provide, which is a spin-off of the Noakes Foundation in South Africa. And so people submit to do those courses. They're required to accumulate what we're calling continuing metabolic health education credits, CMHEs. And that they get from attending symposiums like ours, other symposiums that exist, doing more other courses that the Nutrition Network have. There's a couple of free courses from Diet Doctor, one that we've done through the SMHP for Sarah Hallberg, it's like a legacy thing for her, because she died a few years ago from cancer. And so there's a whole different bunch of ways that people can accumulate these credits. And once they've got the credits and they've done the training, or they've written the essay about their practical experience or whatever it is, they apply and they get approved, or if they get approved, or when they get approved, they get to use the credentials MHP, which is Metabolic Health Practitioner.
Which, by the way, is after your name and is after my name. And it's I can speak from experience. I did the education pathway. I guess that's the Nutrition Network, and it's a vast amount of education on therapeutic carbohydrate reduction and all aspects of metabolic health. So
how to apply it.
Yeah. So very
impressive. I actually was the first one to get accredited, because I had to go through the whole thing and make sure that it actually was of a high enough standard and sufficient requirement to have us be able to certify effectively that this person is competent in this intervention. So yeah, that was. I think that's still one of the best things that we've done. Is to get that in place. They get this really cool orange badge, SMHP badge that says accredited on it, and they can put that on their website or on the bottom of their email footers and stuff like that. And again, we with the SMHP, we built it. I had no idea whether or not anybody was going to be interested, but I had 6 other board members who are all now physicians and surgeons and a nutritionist that felt like it was going to be valuable. So we put it out there, and people came. They started signing up and joining as members and paying the fees and seeing the value in it. And then we added this like just after we launched, we added the accreditation pathways, and again, had no idea if anybody was going to think it was valuable, and people have been swarming to it. And so we have already 100 and something people now fully accredited, at least that many in the pipeline somewhere are working their way towards it. And, now a few years later, I've seen it a lot, but the very first time, like one of the early people that got accredited, she was a doctor, and I wrote to her and said, like, congratulations, your application to be accredited has been accepted. And she wrote back and said, Doug, this means more to me than when I became an MD, because now I feel like I can actually really help people. And that was so powerful. And I tell that story so many times, but it's amazing. That's why we still do this, because of
it is very powerful. Like, and what it means to me is that the practitioner that puts that after their name is open to using therapeutic carbohydrate reduction and is knowledgeable about it. And there's a lot of practitioners that are not. So a lot of people really struggle to find a doctor who can, help them on that path. While we, I think there's, some people that are just learning about the SMHP now, and we've got just about 900 people like actually listening in real time. And then this is going to be available for re-listens on the Ovadia Heart Health iFix Heart's YouTube page. But tell people some of the other benefits, give a quick overview on, a couple of things that I've personally found beneficial include the grand rounds, where you have experts presentations that are available exclusively to members. And then some of the other things that people will get when they become a member of the SMHP.
Yeah. So the grand rounds was something that we added in after we opened it up, and the idea for somebody who doesn't know what grand rounds is, it's like at medical institutions, hospitals, and stuff like that, they have this thing, and I still actually need to find out why they call it grand rounds, but it's really where they bring in a speaker or a scientist from outside to present some kind of cutting edge discovery or practice of some kind or whatever that they can teach the people and the doctors and the nurses and other practitioners in the hospital. And so we've got an online version of that within the SMHP, and we're supposed to put on one every month, but I've had so much going on that sometimes I've missed a couple of months. But we package those together into group bundles of 6, and they're worth 10 CME credits as well, which if you're a member, then you don't have to pay extra for those credits, which is actually quite nice. And then and then we launched last year the journal, Journal of Metabolic Health. And again, anybody can submit an article or a paper to that journal. But if you're a member of the SMHP, and you're the first author on the paper, then the SMHP covers the journal fees if it gets published. And for those who don't know, you can submit it. It doesn't cost anything to submit it, but if it gets published, then somebody has to pay at that point. And if you're an SMHP member, then we will cover the fees for that publication. And then Dr. Melanie Tidman is one of our long-term members, and she is a professor at, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 different universities. And one of the things she does at least one of them is run a journal club. And she teaches her students in the university how to write a paper, how to design a research project, and there's the papers can be just the clinical cases and that you're documenting, right? And there's all of these doctors out there have so many that they could do, and they could do like a case series, and then do like what Tro does, and he actually did an actual trial in his practice. It doesn't have to be a lot. 3 patients is enough, right? And you get a baseline and you track them through some changes, and then document the results and eventually create a paper out of it. So we really wanted to encourage people to be able to start submitting stuff. We want to get more and more published papers and articles about this intervention, because the more that get out there, the more people can cite and the more momentum it picks up.
It's really amazing what you've done, because you're by educating practitioners, young, could even be students who are going to be practitioners one day, and educating them on how you've prepared the body of information, and you've kind of compiled it all together in an easy to access way, and then now you're teaching people how to study these, put together these studies and get them published, which it just continues to further the mission, which is just so important. So I just it's just really been incredible to watch.
Yeah. So Melanie basically came and said she wanted to do a journal club for us with our members, and she developed, it's all on the website now. She's developed this whole research academy that she's created that's got actual training modules and stuff in that teaches people from the very first, how do you come up with a concept of what this paper is going to be about, or what this research is going to be about, all the way down to finally submitting the paper and then dealing with the reviewers afterwards and all of that stuff. And then quarterly, she runs these journal club meetings. So we had one last Saturday, around 2 weeks ago, Saturday, which was the second one. And then the third one is going to be on like the 21st of June or something. And we actually just got confirmation today that Dr. Adrian Sotomoto is going to come and be the guest speaker on data collection, data analysis, and data handling, basically, which is his forte. He is like, people actually don't realize, he's like one of the most well-respected researchers and scientists around, not even just in the low carb space. So, and he is super excited. Melanie wrote to him, said, copied me and said, like, hey, do you think you'd be able to come and do a talk here? And he wrote back and said, I'd love to do this. Like he's excited that we're trying to teach more people how to actually submit an academic document. It's and he's all over helping us, and there's no ego, there's no attitude. It's just like, how can I help? And it's wonderful. It really is.
Let me, I'm just taking a look at the website right now. You've got, you've got patient tools and handouts, which are great for, people that want to get a quick, very easy to understand summary of the benefits of therapeutic carbohydrate reduction. You've got an introduction to low carb, why you need to be using a CGM. These are all resources that are available, and they're designed for
those are all for free, right? Yeah. Well, so there's two. There's a group. There's a set for the patient, and there's a set for the practitioner.
Yep.
And then there's some that are there for the patient to take to his doctor, to try and teach them something or tell them, this is what I want to do. Like, you need to read this and learn.
I would encourage everyone to visit the URL is right on the screen, the smhp.org. There's also some, I mean, even if it's just to go get the recipe to the keto shepherd's pie or the keto beef stew or the keto chorizo and beef chili, I mean, you name it.
Forgot about that. So that's a new thing. And Tro needs to take credit for that too, because it was like his idea to have a recipe section. So we kind of added it as we were doing this massive revision, like overhaul of the website itself. And we added it in, and we managed to pull together 12 really good recipes to get started. But that's obviously not even close to sufficient. But what the website guys at the moment are busy doing is building a recipe submission page, which we're going to run a competition. I'm hoping in the next month, I'm hoping to run a competition where people, if they would like to, can submit a recipe to get published on the website, and they'll get named and get credit for it.
That's brilliant.
And then, but it'll be on the SMHP website. So I think it's going to go well, and I think we'll get a bunch of recipes in there, and so that I'm hoping that at least by the end of the year we're going to have a really amazing database of low carb keto recipes.
Hey, Doug, we've officially broken the record for the longest live stream by almost a half an hour, which is brilliant because I've really enjoyed every minute of this. Is there anything that we've missed or that you'd like to include before we wrap up? And I just want to, while you're thinking about that, I am going to put back on the screen the book briefly, and I'll take the you can find the book on Amazon. That's pretty easy. Just search Doug Reynolds and The Road to Metabolic Health, and you will find it. It's a really good read, and it's got a lot of it includes some of what Doug talked about today, but it's got a lot more really interesting stories about the history of this organization, now 2 organizations, which are, the story continues. I'm looking forward to this sequel, sometime in the not so distant future. And then while you are still thinking, I will just one more time encourage people to show up in San Diego, and you can find that on the LowCarbUSA website, lowcarbusa.org, and just look for the events page and you'll find it. And anything else, Doug, you'd like to mention before we wrap up?
No, I think we've run long, so we've spoken a lot. I think we've covered a lot of stuff. You're talking about the book. I mean, it goes back all the way back to when my father was born in Sarawak in Borneo, back in the day when it was a British colony, and his father was a commissioner of police there. And just fleetingly, but it's an interesting story about the headhunters there and stuff. And then my whole life growing up, in Rhodesia, then became Zimbabwe, moving to South Africa, finishing university there and working there for a while. Massive accident, TBI, moved to the States, and how all of these things happened to me that set me up to just start doing this without even thinking about it. And I don't know. A lot of people have read it now, and they said they find the whole backstory interesting as well. So hopefully, if you get it, you'll find it interesting too.
Yep, I can vouch for that. I definitely encourage people to give it a read. I encourage people to become connected with the low carb community, which Doug Reynolds is really, Doug and Pam Devine are the two that are right at the center of all of this, and it's just continuing to grow every day, and look forward to seeing where it goes from here.
Amazing, Chris. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you, and I hope everybody has a great rest of the week. We're going to wrap this up. Thanks a lot.
Cheers, guys.